Welcome back, everyone, to Middays, rocking into the afternoon portion of the program from the Element Wealth Studios. Joining us now on the phone, Joel and Anand Samy and Natasha Srdoc. They are the host and co-host of America's Roundtable radio program, co-founder of International Leaders Summit. Joel and Natasha, welcome to Middays.
Thank you so much, Gerard. It's great to be with you again.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Gerard. It's great to join you all.
Thank you. Thank you. So we've been talking this morning about the economic situation here in particular in this country and Joe Biden's handling of it or mishandling of it. He just seems to refuse to accept any responsibility whatsoever for the plight that Americans are feeling at the pump, at the grocery store, and virtually all of their purchases, this rampant inflation. He just refuses to accept that his policies were culpable in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Yeah, it is actually. It would be great to remember his words from the 2020 presidential debate when he said, and I quote, he said, "You're sitting at the king of the table deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald, or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage?" And unquote. Mm-hmm. So President Biden said those words when inflation rate was at 1.4%. Today it is at 8.6%. 30-year mortgage rate was at around 3%, and today it's at 6.28%. Gas prices were $2.30 a gallon, and today's national average for a gallon of gas hits new all-time high of $5 per gallon. So actually, since it hasn't been that high since 2000.
Right.
So, and it is, as you said, if Biden doesn't take any responsibility for this situation, and it all happened since he took power, since Biden's administration. So it is actually bad policies and actually really not getting any better. Basically, in order to rein in inflation, which is now again at 40-year high at 8.6%, they are now raising interest rates. So a rising interest rate is actually the 0.75%, as we heard. Right. Also on on the radio just a few minutes ago, it was mentioned. So the Federal Reserve raised interest rates by 0.75% this past week, actually yesterday.
Yep.
And it is the largest increase since 1974. And actually, this will obviously, it can be two scenarios. It will slow down the economy, not to get into recession, or since it looks like it's just too fast, in a very short period of time, getting too fast, it can really get us to recession, and that's a great risk.
Yeah, and again, what do you think, Joel? The president, he stands in front of the country at this AFL-CIO meeting. He tells the union members there, we're going to rely on you to deliver us from this downturn in this inflationary spiral we're in. You're going to take us back, and this is all because of Putin's price hike and the Ukraine and Russia conflict. And again, it's the mark, is it not, Joel, of a weak person, and certainly a weak person that's in a position of leadership, such as the President of the United States, to not accept any responsibility and keep pointing fingers elsewhere?
It is truly very disappointing to see American leadership being so weakened. And, I recall when President Ronald Reagan used to say, the buck stops here, right, meaning he would take responsibility, and that's true leadership. But in the case of Joe Biden, he's trying to blame anyone and everyone for the problems, yet we all know clearly well that it's the Biden's administration and their policies that have caused these problems. Yeah. From the U.S. southern border, the crisis that we have there, to fuel prices going up so high. And, the fact is that on his first day in office, Joe Biden canceled the Keystone Pipeline. And he pushed for extreme measures and specifically energy policies that were too restrictive. So now to go back and say, well, it's Putin's fault, well, there is to be a clarification. It was the Biden administration's policies. And as, Natasha communicated about inflation, that is a punitive taxation on the average American family and the working poor as well.
Yeah.
That, as much as they talk about compassion and wanting to help people, they have brought this on. And America's economic situation is in great decline due to the Biden administration leadership.
No doubt about it. And he continues to still push for higher taxes, wants to implement a windfall profits tax. And last time we tried that was disastrous. What we need is more supply, and nothing will thwart the production of oil and reduce supply than put more taxes on it. That's just a silly idea. He continues to campaign for his radical Build Back Better, Green New Deal, climate change policies. He's not backing off on any of those. That's not really solving any problems.
No, and then trying to address the oil companies and going after them. That just doesn't make sense. Even the oil companies, Exxon and Shell, have communicated that they need to look at some of these restrictive measures. Exxon mentioned that they need to do something by boosting supplies by issuing the Jones Act waivers, which will allow shippers to move supplies around domestically on larger vessels.
Right.
And waive some of the fuel specifications. And on the other side, Shell has been saying that they need to accelerate efforts to lift oil production in the Gulf of Mexico. And, there are some practical things that could be done, but the Biden administration is at this stage doing too little, and it's very late to the table to address these issues.
Yeah.
But America's families, in the meantime, are suffering, as well as small businesses. So while he's saying on one side that inflation is not his problem, or he doesn't want to take responsibility for it, we know that these are not just only kitchen table issues, they are affecting the American family's pocketbook.
No doubt.
And that matters.
All right, so the Ukraine-Russia conflict was really dominating the headlines not so long ago, and it seems to have faded in the background as we're dealing with these domestic problems, baby formula shortage, inflation, all the other economic issues. Give us an update. What's going on in the conflict?
Well, as you rightfully mentioned, it's no longer front-page news in America or in other parts of the world. And yesterday, we had the president of France, the prime minister of Italy, and as well as the chancellor of Germany. They all visited Ukraine, but it certainly did not make global news. And we've heard from the Donbass region that there are some 1,000 casualties a day. This has been reported from a Ukrainian official. Now, General Mark Milley is mentioning that, they don't have that data really verified. He's looking at figures around 300-400, but still, it is a high number of casualties on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think we're all concerned about, we're here in Croatia for a very brief period of time and returning to the States. We're in a country that borders Hungary. And from that Croatian-Hungary border to the Ukrainian border, we're talking about some 300 miles. And that same distance from the Ukrainian border to Vienna is also some 300 miles. So just to give you a sense of the geography, it just only takes 5 hours to drive across to the Ukrainian border. So it is a real concern. We certainly stand with the Ukrainian people. But at the same time, there can be more done in order to address the issues. We certainly see a Biden administration coming too late to helping Ukraine. They could have done much more to avoid this crisis. And I must say that Europeans need to actually step up to the plate. They need to pay their fair share in order to support NATO defenses. For too long, they have been able to wiggle their way out. President Trump even mentioned that the European partners should pay 4% of their GDP toward the national defense or towards defense of NATO. So those are real issues that we need to address as well.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And now we just sent $40 billion their way, and I think Joe Biden signed off on another $1 billion for some particular purpose yesterday. So, I hope we get our value out of that as taxpayers, but I'm not really sure, and it's just something we got to keep an eye on. Joel, Natasha, really appreciate and enjoy having you guys on the program today. And until we talk next time, y'all stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Gerard.
All
Thank
the
you.
best.
All the best to you guys.